for a caster showdown. And if you watch the last Players Cup, it might look a little bit familiar. That's because we're using a gym leader battle format where both trainers are going to be sharing a singular type amongst all their Pokemon. And the challengers for this one are Lou and Lee. Adam, you've got to be excited about this.
I definitely am. I obviously got to watch the gym leader battle in our last Players Cup and talk about yourself and Aaron playing that one out. So Lee and Lou coming in a little bit blind, a little bit new. There's nothing to be defending on this one. They both get to try it out for the first time. And with the teams up on the field, you can already see that we're going to be in for a really good match between these two. No shocks, I think, as to the starting point of Lou's team here.
Absolutely not, especially when you know that Lou's favorite Pokemon is Pikachu. Shouldn't surprise you at all that Pikachu is going to be one of the biggest factors on Lou's team, especially with the support from Regieleki and Tapu Koko. You also have heavy hitters like Magnezone, which is going to do a lot against potentially what's on Lee's team.
Well, Lee looks like he's been building around one of those brand new Pokemon that we just saw with the Crown Tundra coming towards us, the Galarian Moltres. And I know when it first released, people were playing the expansion, getting really excited about it, thinking, well, which of these new Galarian birds is going to be the best? And a lot of people have settled on Moltres. He's used that and its dark typing to build a whole dark type team around. He's got some really cool supportive Pokemon on there, like the Sableye, I think can do a lot of work. Some interesting choices like the Malamar as well. So really good blend. Obviously in this matchup, that Crocodile is going to become very important. It does have that really nice typing of the ground type along with its dark type to try and match up against the electric type. But it's clear that Lou has already thought about that as she put her team together and wasn't going to overlook such an obvious response to her team.
Absolutely. One of Lou's biggest fears when actually taking a look at Lee's dark type team was, in fact, potential Crocodile or Urshifu being on the team. With Crocodile having access to something like Anger Point, that could spell a lot of trouble for Lou's team. So we're going to have to see how these Pokemon are trained and exactly what's going to happen. But I feel like both of these players, with their accomplishments, are just so prepared to be gym leader battles today.
Oh, they definitely are. And of course, Lou, really, really good when it comes to some of these niche formats, as we can say, like talk about. Obviously, Little Cup was very much in her wheelhouse, so it's interesting to see her move on to try and conquer the gym leader battle as well. But apart from that, she's got a really good list of accomplishments outside of just Little Cup. She's very proud of Little Cup. We're not taking that away from her. But in 2017, she had an absolutely standout year. Birmingham Regionals top 16, top 32 in Oceania at their international championships, and a top 8 in Vienna at one of those special events as well.
And Lee's no slouch either. Another veteran of the scene like yourself, Adam, has a lot of accomplishments to his name. UK Nationals top 4 in both 2010 and 2013. And then the big standout year for him was World's top 8 in 2014. Plus, 2018, not too long ago, Sheffield Regionals finalist. So lots of accomplishments for Lee as well. But for Lou and Lee, this is definitely not the first time that we've actually seen them go head-to-head or battle it out. They've definitely been building up their friendship over the course of several years. And this is definitely a rematch for them in a lot of ways.
Well, I'm not even going to try and predict who's going to take this one. Obviously, I've worked with Lou a lot and have fallen victim to some of her team building in the past, but I've known Lee a very, very long time. I did meet him at that first accomplishment we had in 2010. So a really kind of tough one for me to call. I just hope both of them have a really good game. We just get a good set out of it. That's all we can ask for in such a fun format.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to just jump right into it. There's so much action to unfold for this caster showdown. We might as well just hop right in. And we can already see that Lee's going to be sending out the Malamar and Crocodile, where we're going to also see Lou match that with Tapu Koko and Thundurus, already going to set the terrain for the field.
I think the combination of leading Tapu Koko in anything is always going to be popular in this one because the electric terrain becomes so important for a purely electric type team. And a really interesting start. Obviously, the Crocodile, I think, has to come and see what it can do to start this game out. But Lou is going to know that's the focal point, that's the threat, and is probably going to spend a whole lot of time trying to deal with it early on.
Yeah, and especially when the Crocodile actually procced that Defiant ability on Thunderous. Thunderous is going to be getting a pretty big boost here, but to what effect? Is it going to be going after the Malamar? You know, Malamar has access to things such as Trick Room to be able to set for some of maybe Lee's potentially slower Pokemon, so it might be smart to double into that slot and see whether or not you can just knock it out before the Trick Room even gets set up.
Yeah, there's plenty of answers on this side, and I think this first turn is going to be really big for both players in finding an early advantage as we kick it off with a classic Crocodile Rock Slide.
And a Dazzling Gleam to follow that up, which does a severe amount of damage to Crocodile. It also brings Malamar to about half. But the big thing there is that there was a flinch on the field, so Malamar gonna stay healthy. Get that Trick Room up.
That's really big, I think, getting that Trick Room up. Lou had already kind of considered it. We saw from her side of the field, yes, she was trying to target it down with something like the Wild Charge to just get really big damage down and try and prevent that Trick Room. But Crocodile Rock Slide is always going to be a problem, and it's something that a lot of trainers look at and try and not say play around, but use as an option. And getting one flinch, very, very helpful there for Lee. So he's in a good position. He's got his Trick Room set up. Of course, his Crocodile is going to be in an odd position here as he just kind of decides to start setting up more for himself as the game goes on.
Yeah, you can already see some of that setup happening for some of the Pokemon that might be in the back, such as the Rain Dance. And with Malamar getting knocked out here, that's a free switch in for Lee to bring in another heavy hitter that might be in another Pokeball. But Tapu Koko goes for a Dazzling Gleam, and that's going to be a second knockout. That's a double knockout for Lou in just the second turn.
That's a really, really good swing of momentum. Yes, Lee managed to get the Trick Room up first turn. That's something he's really, really keen on getting. And obviously his back two are going to be very reliant on that. You wouldn't give up such a kind of promising lead and start if you weren't confident in the way you were going to be able to play the game. We see why the Rain Dance was set up in that turn. Yes, Malamar got knocked out, but he also managed to get the Crawdaunt in, and he's also showing off that Moltres that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Crawdaunt is one of those Pokemon that really sticks out to me just because it's not a Pokemon that you see too often, but with adaptability as its main ability, that's going to make sure that your same type attack bonus damage is going to be amplified ever more so. And with the Rain up too, that's going to be pretty powerful. But how is it going to fare against Lou's electric type team?
We're about to find out, and it looks like Lee's throwing a lot behind this Crawdaunt, using it as the Dynamax focus point of his team. Something that I think is very interesting in these non-standard teams is where the Dynamax lands. And Crawdaunt with the Rain, and of course, as you mentioned, adaptability, looks like it just wants to try and deal as much damage as possible so it doesn't get hit by these electric types. And this is certainly one way around it, just max geysering.
Oh, absolutely. That is going to be a knockout for Lee, taking out Lou's Tapu Koko. But Moltres is also going to be able to fire off that Fiery Wrath thanks to that Trick Room being up. So Lou, just like that, with a swing of momentum again, is going to be down 2 Pokemon. So it's even across the board.
That's exactly what Lee wanted in this one, I think, was the ability to turn the game around. Trick Room, Rain Dance, then start sweeping. He's put so much into this combination of Rain Dance and Trick Room. Yeah, it looked bad when he lost the first 2 Pokemon, but he's now in a really good position. That said, Lou hasn't used her Dynamax yet. She is going to be in a position to try and kind of switch that around, and her Dynamax will be going a little bit later, so a lot going in to her choice of Dynamax and what she can do with it here while, Trick Room's up, and it's not always the best condition if you didn't set it.
Absolutely. But you also saw something really important happen when Magnezone entered the field. There was an electric seed that Magnezone consumed in order to increase its defense, which I feel like could play a really big factor in this game. Just for Magnezone's survivability.
The electric seed, really key. You've got an electric type team, you're likely going to have control of the terrain, so you're always going to get those boosts coming in. Particularly with the dark type team, it's pretty hard to change the terrain. So Lou probably feeling pretty good about how consistently she's going to be able to set that one up. The Magnezone being Dynamax, I think, is really, really interesting here. You'd think that right now something like the Rotom could be a good one, but Lou's decided, no, Magnezone's what I need to get through this, and depending on where this Max Geyser goes, that could be really important.
Ooh, the Max Geyser goes into the Magnezone, and that's going to do about half damage. So good thing for Lou that she did end up Dynamaxing that Magnezone just to give it that extra health increase. But Moltres not going to take that attack super well. In fact, going to get one hit knocked out to it as Rotom goes for that Leaf Storm, and whoa, that was a lot of damage.
Rotom is not messing around, and Rotom is going to be really key here, dealing with Crawdaunt, dealing with Crocodile, and it's definitely putting in a really good shift towards the end of this game. Lou's certainly got some interesting options, as we saw there on the Magnezone. I think she's built her team really conscious of covering that matchup spread really, really well. And this Crawdaunt, yes, it does have the advantage of being in the Trick Room. It does have its Rain up right now, but it looks like it might be struggling. It will level up the Pokemon count at 1-1, but very low on health. Magnezone does get to fire back.
Magnezone is going to be able to fire back after its buddy Rotom goes down, and it just barely hangs on, even just from that recoil there, as that's going to seal the deal. Lou taking this very first game of the gym leader battles.
Yeah, and I think her team working really well there. Lou showing that she can respond to kind of anything that Lee throws out in this one. You know, he threw out the Trick Room Rain Dance combination, and she responded very well to it. But the momentum in that game for both players swung so drastically. You know, it was set up Trick Room, which was kind of a slow turn. Then it was get 2 knockouts for Lou. So that you felt really good. And then immediately after it was get 2 knockouts for Lee. So really kind of interesting seeing the way that they play this one out. And I think Lee is going to be the one looking for different tricks in his team. He's certainly got them. That's kind of a thing with the Dark types, is they've got plenty of tricks up their sleeve. And he's going to have to dig in and I think find something a little bit different if he wants to, you know, respond to what he just saw.
Yeah, I was looking at that Sableye on Lee's team as a potential, equalizer for the battle, where that Sableye has a lot of tricks up its own sleeve, including Trick as an actual move. And so you never know what could actually come out from that Sableye. So maybe something like that could come out. And then also thinking about that Crocodile once again. A lot of times when you're looking at Crocodile's damage output, you're kind of looking at maybe having an Anger Point Crocodile, but that was Intimidate. And Lou getting that Defiant boost so early on really swung the momentum in her favor.
That's something that Lee's going to have to be careful of in Game 2. Very conscious, of course, of giving over boosts like that. That Wild Charge, we saw how much damage it did to the Malamar. If there wasn't a flinch, that game would have been so much different. Really would have been a disastrous turn 1. So that helped, but I think maybe Lee has to consider something a little bit different. Maybe save that Crocodile. Bring it in when you don't hand over the Defiant boost. It's really fun to see Thundurus being used like that, but you've got to be careful. Once you know about it, you can't play so recklessly in front of it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to see what kind of adjustments take place as we enter into Game 2 of this gym leader battle. Really excited to see what Lee potentially is going to do here. And already we're seeing a bit of a mix-up here. Galarian Moltres was a Pokemon that was brought in the back for Lee, but this time it's going to be brought in the front. And let's look at this. Lou also making yet another adjustment, bringing that Pikachu this time around.
Pikachu coming in is pretty standard for Lou. It has to make an appearance in this set at some point. So curious to see her bringing in the lead. I know that she's a big fan of the Gigantamax version, and this could be an interesting time to do it. I really would be curious to see how early she decides to use the Dynamax, or in this case, Gigantamax version.
Yeah, we'll have to see whether or not that is going to come through. But you can already see that Lou is trying to hover over a lot of damage here. A very, opening Dazzling Gleam from last turn was able to spell a lot of disaster for Lee's Crocodile. So clicking that again is going to be really impactful this game. But here comes that Gigantamax, and what else would we expect from Lou?
We knew it was coming, right? At some point in this set, we were going to have to see it. So she decides right off the bat, no holding it, no setting up for it. Let's just get Gigantamax going and really start trying to fight back as best she can with an interesting matchup. No boost from the Intimidate into Defiance, so not quite as strong. And both trainers this game just Dynamax turn 1. Let's go. Let's fight immediately.
Yeah, but I really like this adjustment coming out from Lee, just because I felt like that first game was a little bit more passive. But this time around, we are seeing this Crocodile go for some intense damage. That Bulldoze doing a lot to both Tapu Koko and Pikachu on Lou's side.
Oh boy, that's huge damage, and it's usually used just to lower speeds or activate weakness policies. This Crocodile really causing some problems. That Pikachu not even afforded the chance to move. Just immediately taken out by that Moltres. Lee has seen it. He knows what it can do, and he is most certainly a little bit scared of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is going to be the last we see of that Pikachu for this second game. But that Dazzling Gleam, once again, doing so much damage to that Crocodile. But, oh no, weakness policy is going to sharpen this Moltres' attack. And That is very scary for Lu's team.
That Moltres has just got exactly what it wanted in the turn. It got the knockout with Max Darkness, and it got its weakness policy activated. It's an item a lot of people have been playing around with on the Moltres, and seems to be getting off to a good start. So, really going to be an interesting one to see how much damage it does. I've only experimented it a little bit myself, and the damage output is a little bit bananas, to be quite honest. We will also get to take a look at Regieleki. That's also a new Pokemon from the Crown Tundra expansion, and we'll see how that can do in dealing with the Moltres. I mean, matchup-wise, it should be good, but this Moltres is looking pretty terrifying right now.
Yeah, but it looks a little bit scared to me, as Lee is going to opt for that Max Guard. Definitely doesn't want to take too much damage on that Moltres, even though it does have that weakness policy boost. Just kind of hoping to reduce the number of threats on the field with that Crocodile going for so much damage. So that's going to be Tapu Koko going down. Regieleki trying its best to use an attack into the Moltres, but to no avail because of that Max Guard.
Very smart from the Max Guard. You draw all the attention to yourself with the weakness policy activation. You say, look at me, I'm the one going to be dealing all the damage, causing all the problems. And immediately you take that pressure off by Max Guarding. Obviously, your Crocodile is going to be in a really good position with another Bulldoze. Just being able to lower the speed, take Regieleki's best stat down a little bit, make him a little bit more manageable. I don't know how much more manageable, but a little bit more manageable. We'll call it that. And yeah, the Crocodile, we see it moving first. We see it using the same move over and over. We can kind of get a good insight into what it's doing.
Right, just clicking Bulldoze and making sure that loose Pokemon don't even get a chance to move in some cases. As Regieleki goes down, Max Darkness comes out from the Galarian Moltres, and Magnezone now getting knocked out. This is evening up the score here. Lee making those adaptations and bringing the score 1-1.
That was a quick game. He figured out what he needed to do nice and early on, didn't mess around setting up any Trick Room, any Rain Dance, and just said, okay, Moltres is the focal point of my team, that's fine. Here we go. I'm just going to let it get its weakness policy and put it next to this Crocodile. I think the combination of Bulldoze, that obviously doesn't hit the Moltres with its flying type, but lowers your opponent's speed, brings Moltres into a more reasonable range to outspeed and deal that huge damage. It was a quick game, and now the onus really is on Lu to respond and say, okay, I know what your best pairing is, so I'm going to figure out my answer to that.
Right. It was a little bit too bad not to see Gigantamax Pikachu find more value, but you were absolutely right about that combination of Bulldoze and then allowing the Galarian Moltres with that drop speed to move next. Just was able to get that quick knockout and remove that big Gigantamax threat from Lu's team. So maybe kind of thinking about that for Game 3 and playing around for just the potential for Pikachu to do more damage.
Yeah, if you bring Pikachu, it's got to be a little bit safer than that. The Bulldoze coming out of the Crocodile right up from the get-go, the Choice Scarf being revealed in both games 1 and 2, but knowing about that is something that I think Lu is going to have to play around very, very cautiously, because Bulldoze was picking up 2-hit knockouts kind of on Regieleki, Tapu Koko, Pikachu, really struggling to deal with stuff like that. So a lot of focus now goes on to how do I deal with the Bulldoze, and I think the Thundurus has to make another appearance. The Defiant and the Flying type are going to be key here.
Absolutely. Well, let's see whether or not that happens. Let's jump into Game 3 and find out exactly how this Caster Showdown finishes. We will see Lee yet make another change here, as it's going to be Sneasel and Malamar hitting the field. But this time for Lu, it's Regieleki and Tapu Koko.
It's an interesting one. It's a very aggressive lead from Lu, but the Crocodile's not there, so it's not the worst thing in the world, and it can really put down a lot of damage. I like that, and this is definitely a very tricksy lead from Lee. That Sneasel, a lot of people talk about it being the Weavile and what it can do, and it's, just in the non-evolved form. Really interesting to see how he decides to kind of play around that one.
Yeah, super interesting to kind of see that Sneasel hit the field and just kind of see exactly how that's going to be playing out here for Lee. But with Malamar on the field, not only is there kind of that potential for that Trick Room, but yeah, Sneasel packs a lot of punch with that Fake Out. But here comes Regieleki with that Rising Voltage, and oh wow, if Malamar was going to go for a move here, we're not going to see it.
Not a chance. Rising Voltage from the Regieleki is such a high damage output attack, and when you get it off consistently, oh boy, you're taking knockouts. And I think a lot was going there into the Malamar, maybe setting up Trick Room, Fake Out there from the Sneasel, being very smart, kind of slowing things down a little bit, but maybe not the target that you wanted to land that on. Yes, you get to avoid the Fairy attack, such as the Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko, but you also let the Regieleki attack, and it's really a tough choice to make. Sneasel's going to have to put some work in now when it's 4 versus 3.
Yeah, but I think that's what I really like about Lu's aggressive start, is that you had 2 pretty big damage threats on the field with Tapu Koko and Regieleki, both packing a big punch. So it does make that choice very difficult for Lee to, what do you target down to kind of stop from moving? And yeah, that Regieleki taking a very quick knockout here, it puts a lot of momentum in Lu's favor.
Most definitely, and the big thing here as well is Crocodile has to be careful. If it wants to use spread ground moves, it's going to be hitting the Sneasel right now, unless something like Moltres is in the back and it could be switched in. But we finally get to see a Dynamax in this game. A little later than last game. Last game we just went straight for him on turn 1, and the game was done pretty quick. But Tapu Koko, the choice of Dynamax. Something that not always seen, but feeling confident in Tapu Koko's ability to, pick up the momentum and keep going all the good work that happened in turn 1 for Lu.
Yeah, especially if Crocodile's going to go for that high horsepower. If Tapu Koko had not Dynamax there, then that might have been a knockout there for Lee. But here comes another Rising Voltage, and Sneasel, oh no, going to go down to that one too.
Sneasel very quickly taken out there. The Rising Voltage really putting in work and showing just what a potent attack it is and why it's been so popular amongst players in the early kind of new format that we've got. Really showing that this high damage output team can cause problems. The follow-up Max Starfall means there's not much chance for the Crocodile to stick around there. And yeah, the Tapu Koko takes a little bit of damage for itself, but the Pokemon advantage overwhelmingly in Lu's favor, and it's the Crawdaunt in the back, which probably going to be up against it a little bit in this matchup.
Yeah, especially when you think about how much setup is required for that Crawdaunt to really shine with the Trick Room and the Rain Dance that were supposed to come out from Malamar. Now that Crawdaunt is kind of in a position where it's really up a paddle without a creek. You're going to have to try to figure out how to deal with this significant Pokemon advantage that Lu has, and also the fact that Crawdaunt's going to be a little bit slower on the field. But it's time for Dynamax here. Lee's definitely giving it all he's got.
It's the only option. It's your last Pokemon. You haven't used Dynamax yet. You just got to click it and go from there. That's the best option. If it can land attacks, there could be a comeback going on here. But I think with the way the 4 he selected, I think this Crawdaunt was really, really relying on having that Trick Room up. And losing Malamar turn 1 definitely limited that option as well. The Rising Voltage doesn't even care about the boost that the Dynamax has given. And just immediately fells this Crawdaunt. We see a perfect execution of the Tapu Koko and Regieleki lead there from Lu. Something a lot of players have been trying out and something she has shown masterfully in this gym leader battle.